This session is being recorded.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Town Select League Fall Family Meeting. My name is Maureen T. LaRoche, Program Manager of the Town Select League. This evening is going to be very content heavy, so we're asking preliminarily that everybody please mute your mic, whether you're on a computer or a phone. And tonight, we ask that you type your questions in the chat box in Zoom. The webinar will be recorded and posted on the TSL homepage.
Actually, Maureen, we're going to be using the Q&A for questions tonight.
Oh, okay, perfect.
It's different than a meeting, which is fine, not a problem. So just type their questions in the Q&A. The hosts of the session will see these and we'll answer them as they at the appropriate time.
Awesome. Thank you, Mike. So we want to thank you for your participation this fall, this season. And just to give you an idea of what our presentation and the webinar will look like tonight. So 7 to 7:45, we'll go through really our content. And then at the end, you'll have the opportunity to answer or to ask any questions regarding the guidelines, modifications, and COVID in general. We appreciate your support and flexibility this season. So thank you so much. Everybody's been amazing so far with their emails and communication. So again, we're going to type questions as we go along into the chat box, and they will be addressed as time allows in the Q&A section at the end of the webinar. Presenters tonight will be Bob Trudeau, President of Massachusetts Youth Soccer. We have Mike Borislow, our Executive Director of Massachusetts Youth Soccer, Ian Mulliner, our Technical Director, and Becky Blanton, our TSL Referee Assigner. Welcome all of you as well. So the TSL, it will look different this season. It is our goal to provide the best possible experience for everyone involved while strictly adhering to the guidelines and modifications prompted by the need to prevent the spread of COVID-19 virus. What will be different in the TSL? Well, later in the webinar, the current guidelines and modifications will be described in detail. How we play the game may change, but why we play the game will not. We focus on player development, joy of the game, the value of being a great teammate, indelible memories, and playing and coaching with character. Here's our TSL culture statement amidst COVID-19. The past is not a perfect guide to the future. During these times, we will all be tested, but it is important to stay true to our character, keep perspective, have faith in ourselves, in each other, and continue to believe in the power of humanity. And now, we're going to listen to a message from our Massachusetts Youth Soccer President, Bob Trudeau. Welcome, Bob.
Thanks, Maureen. And good evening, everyone, and welcome. On behalf of Mass Youth Soccer, I want to thank you and your children for their participation in the Town Select League program. We consider the TSL a key player development, excuse me, a key player development service of our association, and we are extremely excited to kick off the fall season. As Maureen alluded to, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, this season will be like no other that you or your child has experienced. The guidelines, game modifications, and procedures you will hear about tonight are all aligned with the State Department of Public Health's directives for return to play for youth sports and are designed to ensure the health and safety of all participants, players, coaches, and spectators. If you haven't done so already, we'd appreciate you taking the time to read and familiarize yourself with our Return to Soccer Activities Guidelines, which can be found on the Mass Youth Soccer website, so that we can all remain safe and healthy during the COVID-19 emergency. On a personal note, I am very excited to see the TSL season begin, as it gives me a chance to get back on the field and referee. It's been a long hiatus since I last officiated games, just as long as it's been since your children have had the opportunity to play. So I'm sure they're just as excited to get out on the field again. So finally, again, thank you and your children for their participation in the Town Select League. And I hope you all have an enjoyable season in the program. Thank you.
Bob, thank you very much. So tonight's agenda, we'll do a brief overview of the TSL Fall 2020 season. We'll then go to player family safety. Our executive director will talk about the return to soccer activity review and compliance waiver. Modifications to the game will be presented by Becky Blanton. Then we will resume information on capacity limits and spectators, use of face masks, and what practices will look like by Ian Mulliner, our technical director, followed by the Q&A at towards the end of the webinar. Reopening Massachusetts. Well, it's an ever-evolving process with new information being released on a daily and weekly basis. But nevertheless, TSL emphasis for the fall 2020 will be the safety and health of all involved, the opportunity to play, the balance between physical activity and the mental health of our children, and of course, optimism. Optimism is like a muscle. The more we use it, the better we are at it. And we rely on all the parents to be as optimistic as possible and to support the guidelines and the modifications with their child. You are very important in this process. League affiliation. The Town Select League is a Massachusetts Youth Soccer Association state-run program. TSL players are registered and insured through Massachusetts Youth Soccer and U.S. Youth Soccer. The fall season information, schedules, updates, and general information can be found in the TSL Player Parent Handbook, which is posted on the TSL Program tab of the Mass Youth Soccer website. Please check this periodically, as the handbook is going to be a work in progress during the fall. Communication. TSL coaches will communicate weekly with players and parents to confirm practice times, match day logistics, and all the updates pertinent to their team and the program. The TSL administration will keep families up to date through email regarding general program information, schedule changes, and updates as needed. The Affinity US Soccer Connect, or the US Soccer Connect system, only allows one email per family that will be any information sent out to families on behalf of the program. But coaches have the ability to customize a email list. So you will be in the loop with everything. So if you have more than one email, the coach will cover the information, and they always pass along the information that the administration sends out as well. Fall 2020, right around the corner. The fall TSL season will consist of 6 Friday evening practices beginning tomorrow and 5 standalone games on Sundays. So practice begins September 11th and Sunday matches begin September 13th. This fall, there will be a little bit of a difference. There'll be no jamboree in the fall or food drive this fall. The jamboree is usually 2 abbreviated games at the end of the season in the fall and spring. We're only talking about fall right now though. So we're just gonna make that one game, one regular standalone game. The match day venues will be at the Mass Youth Soccer Complex in Lancaster and Iron Rail Field in Wenham, unless one of those locations turns into a red zone or a red area, at which time we will move games to an area that is safe and a white area. And we'll keep you posted and up to date on that. So what to pack for practice and matches? Properly inflated age-appropriate ball, 10U and 12U use size 4, and 13U use size 5. If you don't have the right ball for tomorrow's practice, please don't go out and buy it right now. You'll be fine. Whenever you get around to it, that's okay. Shin guards, cleats, and socks. Hand sanitizer, facial coverings with ear loops, a light and a dark shirt for practice, ample water supply, and when it's match day on Sunday, both home away jerseys for the games. Just a little piece of advice on the practices for the young ladies. Light and the dark shirts for practices for a quick change. They would just want to put like a white t-shirt or some type of a t-shirt underneath for the quick changes, because there'll be no pennies this year. Practice and match day. The start of practice times may need to be adjusted to preserve daylight for the duration of practice. As highlighted in the handbook, schedules, dates, and times are subject to change due to COVID-19 restrictions or updates from Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And now I'd like to introduce our Executive Director of Massachusetts Youth Soccer, Mike Borslow, who will let all the parents know about the return to soccer activity review and compliance waiver that will need to be submitted to the coach tomorrow prior to stepping on the field. Hi, Mike. You're muted, Mike.
Yep, there we go. Thank you very much. Just first off, a thank you to all the parents for having your children, either it's continue in the TSL program or play in the program for the first time. We started the program just about 3.5 years ago, and it was an idea that was growing for a long time. And then with the impetus from some key individuals that are still coaching the program out of the Danvers area, we decided to give it a go. And it's ever since then it's caught on. Now we understand that, the numbers are down a little bit this season. It's understandable that, there are many things taking place within people's households with regards to COVID-19. One of the things that I would like to stress to everybody here is that Mass Youth Soccer takes the health, safety, protection, well-being of our players, our coaches, our parents, our referees, everybody involved with the highest priority. We've always felt that way, but now with everything we're dealing with now, we actually have turned it up quite a few notches. We have our guidelines that have been mentioned several times, and I'm going to ask you as parents that you read and understand the guidelines. It's so very important that you're all fully aware of them. And then the next is there are some checklists to be aware of as well. What's important is that right now, up until this, actually up till right now, is that Mass Youth Soccer and the state, under the guidance from the Department of Health and the Department of EEA of Massachusetts, has been using what's called a self-certification process, which means as a parent, you're self-certifying that before you leave the house with your child, that the child, I think we're all familiar with all the questions by now. Have they had a fever of a certain temperature or higher? Maureen's going to go through this. The various questions that you need to ask: have they been around somebody who's tested positive? Have they been around somebody who's tested positive? Have they been outside of the state in a high-risk location, and so on? The self-certification process works this way: that when you bring your child to the field, you are certifying that you have answered no to all those questions and they're ready for soccer activities. The other part of this is that when you register your child, there was explicit language in there under what's a waiver and release in the registration language that you signed off on when you register your child. You registered, fully acknowledging that there is the susceptibility, there is a chance that your child could either be injured or become ill, and that you're holding Mass Youth Soccer in the program harmless. You're releasing the organization. In addition to that, you're waiving any certain rights to sue in the event your child does catch COVID-19. The key is that as long as we all do what we're supposed to do, coaches, parents, players, administrators, as long as we stay in our lane, as long as we follow the rules, policies, and procedures, there should never be an issue. The issues arise when somebody is what's called grossly negligent. They either provide false information, they don't give us accurate data, they don't answer the questions honestly. And so, we need to be able to protect everybody involved in the program when it comes to these waivers and releases. So Maureen just mentioned a waiver. Actually, the waiver, we're hoping to have it ready tomorrow. It just came out of legal review this afternoon. It's being formatted tonight. When I mean it's hot off the presses, it's hot off the presses. And so Maureen is going to get that out to everybody as soon as possible. Now, the waiver is going to be a required document. It's a wet signature. It has to be signed by a parent or legal guardian of the child. And it's a once a season form. More or less what you're attesting to is that every time you bring your child out, that you know that you're self-certifying that they're healthy and ready to be out there. There also is a section on the form that if you as an adult who will be observing, or an adult involved as a coach or as a coordinator or assistant, and then the player, if they qualify not to wear a mask because of a medical waiver, that you're attesting that the information that you're providing is truthful and honest, and that they do in fact qualify medically not to wear a mask. You don't have to provide proof from a physician. The state law states that we can ask for it, but you don't have to provide it, so we're not going to ask for it. We don't want to put anybody in that predicament. But it also states that any information with regards to falsifying the such is that, unfortunately, if there's any false information being made, it will you could be expelled from Master Soccer for 1 year. So we just ask you to be honest, upright, and just forward with everything taking place. I will say this, with the TSL program, we've got the best darn parents in the state. We really do. You are incredible. You understand the value of the program. It's about helping our children to develop, not only to be better soccer players, but to be better citizens, to be better friends. And so we really, really thank you for being a part of this rather unique program. I will say, I talk to executive directors from all over the country, and they're constantly asking about, what is this TSL? Why is it working so well? Why do people like it so much? And really what it comes down to is the players, the coaches, the referees, and really, so importantly, the parents. So thank you very much. We appreciate everything that you do. Hope I didn't scare you too much, but it's going to be a great season. It's going to be a healthy and fun opportunity. And let's get our kids out there doing what they need to be doing, and that's called having fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. So we're going to move on to player safety. As Mike had mentioned, the health and safety of our players will always be the top priority within the TSL. Actually, the health and safety of everyone will always be our top priority. Before attending any TSL event, please be sure to review the pre-activity checklist. And that actually right now is on page 17. So it could change if there's any more updates. But and if you answer yes to any of the questions, please do not attend. What if? So if your player has a temperature above 100.4 and is showing other symptoms of COVID, please contact your healthcare provider and follow their advice. Please contact the TSL immediately and follow all CDC and Mass Department of Health guidelines until you have been given clearance by your healthcare provider to return to all activities. Positive test. Follow all procedures as provided by Mass Youth Soccer on Return to Soccer Activities webpage. TSL protocols for practices and matches. To minimize the risk, we need to use hand sanitizer, face masks, social distancing, no sharing equipment, no touching faces with hands, and tracking attendance for contact tracing. I want to thank all the parents who have volunteered to be team administrators this fall. And you will be helping to track the attendance at practices, Sunday games, for both the players and the spectators. And this information will always live with the head coach. So you've been amazing. We have 27 teams and close to 400 players, and almost every team but 5 have a team administrator, and you've all done an amazing job working full-time and balancing schedules. So it's just a mark of the type of parents that we have. So and we get to embrace more people on our team, so that's awesome. So thank you, everybody. It is my extreme privilege right now to introduce Becky Blanton, who will present to you the Massachusetts Youth Soccer Town Select League rule modifications for the fall of 2020. Hi, Becky. Welcome.
There we go. Hi, everybody. Really looking forward to seeing everybody out on the field. As Bob mentioned, I've been off the field. I've been on it once to make a video, and it was so nice to be out there and almost kind of be normal. It was cool. Anyway, we do have to talk about some rule modifications for this fall. So Maureen, let's head into the next section. Great. So Mass Youth Soccer originally, as you know, was we were listed as a high impact sport that had many modifications or many restrictions placed on us, like not being able to play. Mass Youth Soccer has really been very much a part of the movement to allow soccer to be played. With modifications, yes, but still the game will be played. So with that, and the most recent modifications from September 4th have told us that there have to be modifications to particular portions of our game. Player behavior modification, and then in-game rule modifications. So let's talk about those. Well, the first thing, if you think about how COVID is spread, how we know that COVID is spread, it's primarily through either coughing, sneezing, bodily fluids that emanate from places on your face typically. So one of the ways that we want to try to keep the spread from continuing is to break some of these habits. I know you've all seen people spit on the field or nose clear on the field or on their gloves, and we can't allow that. Besides, it's just plain disgusting. So let's as coaches, the coaches are going to be working with the players, and we expect the families and the parents to talk about this ahead of time with their players as well. Another player behavior modification is a simple one. It's a coin toss. Typically, our referees will toss a coin with the captains of the teams or those that have been appointed by the coaches to do that portion of the pregame. We, in order again to stop the possible transmission of any contact, we won't be tossing a coin this time. The choice to kick off or to defer goes to the away team, or to defer to the second half, I'm sorry, very much like the NFL. If you want to know whether you're home or away, TSL lists that on the schedule. So let's talk about some of the game in-game rule modifications. This youngster was heading a ball, and what we need to know is that heading in all age brackets has been suspended. You can go to the next slide, Maureen. For all ages, it's considered a dangerous play and would be called as such, and there would be a restart of an indirect free kick. So for those of you parents who know the game from watching the EPL or watching college soccer or even high school soccer or our past soccer, you know that heading is something that's happened. So I'm trying to explain to you what we're changing for the fall, so that as a parent, you understand why referees are calling and restarting the way they are. So here we have another example of another rule modification. If you look at this picture really closely, you'll notice two players that clearly are very close in space. In fact, the kid in the white shirt has his arm around the side of the child in the blue and gold shirt. He's actually pulling on that shirt. That is contact that is no longer allowed. So that's called intentional body contact. So when a member of the opposing team touches the opposite, I'm sorry, give me a second here. So when a member of the opposing team's body touches the other team, that's considered a violation of Law 12. Again, the restart is an indirect free kick. Intentional body contact can include shoulder to shoulder, backing into a player, pulling on a player's shirt, shorts, or mask. No mask pulling though, okay? That's dangerous. So here's a picture of two players contending for the ball, but without any intentional body contact. That would be allowed. They're attempting to play the body with their feet. So it's foot to ball contact, and that's considered legal. Go ahead, Maureen. Here's another in-game modification. These are considered slide tackles. Slide tackles have been suspended this season. Again, Maureen, you can go to the next slide for me. And the restart is an indirect free kick. Most of these modification restarts are indirect free kicks. However, if a player is going to the ground to knock the ball out of the field of play, if they're going to stop a long ground pass and there are no other players within 6 feet, that is considered a tackle, is not considered a tackle, and is permissible. So pretty much any time that there's a restart, no one should pick the ball up with their hands, not the referee, not the players. Ball needs to be moved to the restart spot with one's foot. If the hands are used, either the players or the officials, the ball will have to be removed and sanitized. So for all restarts, all players must comply with the 6-foot distancing from both teammates and opponents, but the opponents must remain at 10 yards or 8 yards for small-sided games from the ball prior to the kick. No longer can we use a defensive wall during this time. That also has been suspended. Again, we want to keep players at least 6 feet apart if we can. Throw-ins. Again, throw-ins are not allowed because we don't want anyone touching the ball. So when the ball crosses the touchline completely and leaves the field, the restart will be an indirect free kick from the spot where the ball went out of play on the touchline. Corner kicks. Again, corner kicks have been suspended and are to be replaced by an indirect free kick. So similar to what a traditional corner kick would look like, the ball is placed inside the corner arc nearest to the point where the ball passed over. But again, it's an indirect free kick at this point, unlike a standard corner kick, which could be placed directly into the goal. Okay, so the restart, for a corner kick would be an indirect free kick. We had mentioned that in the previous slide. I apologize for the duplication. Drop ball, the use of drop balls is suspended as well. To replace that procedure, it will be an indirect free kick awarded to the team that the referee deems to have last been in possession of the ball. So with all of that being said, there are some additional modifications, and Maureen will talk about those. There's one other that I did want to bring to your attention. I know that you're used to seeing your players be safety checked and checked in by the referee. Player check-in now will be, there will be no contact with paper between the referee and the coaches, and the referees will be asking coaches to line their players up with 6 foot distance so that they can do a safety check of equipment. So that will take place. The referees are safety first, safety first, safety first.
Becky, that was such a privilege having you today to explain that to our families. And we really look forward to seeing you on the field in a couple of days.
Likewise.
Thank you. So let's talk a little bit about capacity limits as we move forward. Practices. No more than 25 players or participants, coaches, can be on a single playing field or surface field at any one time. Facilities with multiple fields may be used by more than one group of 25 at one time. Fields must be spaced at least 14 feet apart when sharing a single field. Mass Youth Soccer often does 20 feet, but 14 feet apart at the very least. Capacity limits. Mass Youth Soccer limits the number of spectators at practices on Friday and during matches on Sundays to 1 per player. I know it's really hard, but it's necessary to keep everybody safe. Please, no crowd gatherings in parking lots. And spectators are defined as a parent, legal guardian, or chaperone over 18 years of age. Facial coverings. You'll see a lot of this on the field this year, obviously. So facial coverings for the players on the field. Massachusetts Youth Soccer is requiring all players to wear a face covering per the EEA. Only face coverings that secure with loops around players' ears are acceptable. So in other words, no gaiters or bandanas, for example. Face coverings must be worn when a player steps onto the playing field. During play, when space is greater than 6 feet from another player, a mask break to catch your breath may be taken. The default exception is that face covering will be worn. Facial covering substitutes. What happens on the sideline? Players must properly wear their face coverings at all times when on the sidelines and in any huddles, except when 6 or more feet from another player for a mask break to catch their breath, drink, or eat. If conditions are so severe to warrant masks are too dangerous to wear, the competition must be delayed, postponed, or canceled. Mike, I'm going to ask you to unmute your mic for a minute if you would like to talk about masks and inclement weather.
Okay. Just real quickly, a couple of questions are coming in. I was typing away some answers, but I'll answer them real quick. With regards to the spectators, some questions about younger siblings, if they're allowed. And a sibling is permitted to be with a parent or chaperone who's over the age of 18 or a legal guardian if there's no other child care opportunities available. There is a maximum limit of 50 spectators per playing surface. And so when you have multiple families with multiple kids, we can hit that 50 pretty quick. So it is, it's 1 spectator per player, and if a parent or guardian does not have any other options For childcare, they can have the child with them. The child must stay with them, sit with them. Over the age of 2, must have a mask on. It is not permitted to roam around or go to playgrounds or anything along those lines. And if it becomes a nuisance or a hassle, is to then stay in the car with the child, you know, and then wait till before or after the game or practice. Another question quickly, kids under 18 accompany a player. So the reason why it's over the age of 18 is that sometimes we'll have a child whose both parents or guardians aren't able to make a game or practice. So they could have an aunt, an uncle, or a sibling 18 or older take them. The reason why it's important to have somebody over the age of 18 there is that we need a legal adult that's there with the child. Because if the child does show up and is displaying some signs of illness, is sweating, isn't feeling well, we need to contact that adult right away to take the child home. And so there's no stop and drop anymore, folks. If you're going to bring your child, you can bring them out to the field and go wait in your car, but please do not drop them off, go to Dunkin' Donuts, and then come back a half hour later. During this emergency, COVID pandemic emergency, you will be, that person must be on the premises or in the parking area in the car during all this time.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Did you have another question that you wanted to address before we move forward?
And then, so real quickly too, I just want to touch on one other thing. When we talked about no touching the ball, parents, when you're at a game and you're sitting 8 feet from the sideline, if the ball rolls your way, please do not touch it. Tap it back with your foot, but please do not touch it. And, otherwise, the second anybody touches the ball, it's taken out of play and needs to be sanitized. So we just like to remind you of that. And I'm sorry, Maureen, specifically regarding facial coverings, was there something you wanted me to address?
No, just the weather. When we talked about competition right. Be delayed, postponed, or canceled.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, if it says if conditions are so severe. So we already had our first experience this summer after we started our return to soccer activities games under these new guidelines and modifications this summer. There was a very rainy day. And some people went out and attempted to play, and the masks actually got soaked. And it was very difficult for the children to breathe. And so the stance is that if it's just too dangerous for masks to be worn, they're sodden from rain or the such, is that they can't just take the masks off and we play. The option is that play will be delayed, postponed, or canceled. So it's error in the side of caution, and that's the safest thing to do. So that call could be made well ahead of time by somebody, because if it's pouring rain, Maureen may make the decision to cancel because of the rain, or if it hasn't started raining yet, or it's not raining in Hamilton, Wenham, but it's raining in Lancaster. And then the site coordinators could make the call at that time. And then if play starts and it starts to rain, it's the coaches with consultation with the referees will decide whether or not it's too dangerous to continue. A couple other quick questions. I'm sorry, Maureen, but my child ride to practice with the parent of another child at the same team? Our preference is no carpooling. That's in our guidelines. And the EEA even recommends no carpooling unless it's the only other possible option. And then while carpooling, it's important that everybody pre-sanitizes, wears masks the entire time while in the car, and then after exiting the car, they sanitize as well. And then can parents drop and leave for practices? The question came in and the answer is no. Every child must have either their spectator there at all times.
Thank you, Mike. Some of the questions that you have so greatly answered will also be coming in email prior to our first match on Sunday, so that everybody is clear about game day protocols. Thank you, Mike. The last part of the facial coverings with the substitution or the sideline is use caution to avoid touching the front or the inside of the mask, and remove by using the ear loops. Coaches, staff, and referees and other officials are required to wear facial coverings and maintain a social distance of 6 feet from players, coaches, spectators, and other persons at all times. Facial coverings and social distance. That is key. So let's go over facial covering responsibilities. Going to the field and leaving the field. It is the parent's responsibility to make sure they have a mask and the child has a mask. On the sidelines and on the field, that would be the coach's responsibility. And the referee, neither. Referees are not to advise players on use of a face covering and may provide comments in their official report. For example, if we have a player that doesn't want to wear their mask and keeps taking it off, the referee will write a report. The report will come to me in an email, and then we will have a conversation with the coach, and the coach will most likely have a conversation with you. Compliance is key here at all times. The referee must maintain 6 foot distance at all times during the game, and never the ball. Never is difficult, but we'll do our best to make sure that doesn't happen. But if it does, we have a plan. So we will sanitize the ball and put it back into play. Parent facial coverings. Spectators are required to wear face coverings and social distance on the sideline. This is not negotiable. If we want the kids to play, then we are required to follow rules. You parents are the role models. Spectator expectations. No TSL spectators will ever address the referee, oppositional players, or coaches in a derogatory manner. The new modifications will present difficulties for the referees, so bear with them, please. Our program is a program that respects everyone. So we normalize mistakes and errors on the field. So we need to do that when we have our interactions with human beings. So please be kind in all of your interactions and understanding that this is a first for all of us. And every time we take the field, it's going to be another first. So your cooperation and kindness will be very appreciated. No coaching from the sideline. So parents, ask yourself this question if you are coaching from the sideline. Does what you are saying impact the player's decision-making? And praise, encouragement, recognition of fair play is strongly encouraged. Next, it is a reoccurring honor and privilege to work with this gentleman that I'm about to introduce. We are going to have the honor of having him talk about TSL League methodology, what to expect in practice and matches. Some of these children have not been back on the field since last fall or the winter indoors. So again, it's a delight having him on the webinar. Ian Mulliner, Massachusetts Youth Soccer Technical Director. Hi, Ian. Welcome.
Hello, Maureen, and thank you for having me for the second night on the run. And thank you to you and to Bob, to Becky, and of course to Mike for all of your input this evening. I'm not going to do a lightning round test because I'm not sure that you'll be able to use the Q&A in the way that we would best utilize it. But what I would like to do is welcome you all as the parents of the players in our Town Select League, and let you know that maybe we could start a movement together, you guys and I, because I like to think of you guys as the team behind the team. And maybe we can start referring to you as such, as you are part of the team and you're integral to our success, and certainly part of the Town Select League family. So, team behind the team. It's incumbent upon all of us, and now that includes you as being part of the team, that we cooperate and collaborate to make this the safest season. Not that we haven't done this in seasons past, but we work together to ensure the health and safety both of our players, your sons and daughters, our players, of your sons and daughters, and also of yourselves as you appear on the sidelines and bring your players to and from the soccer events. What I can tell you is that last night we had a coaches meeting. The coaches meeting ended up going for almost 2 hours, and that wasn't because we were just information overloading them, although at times I'm sure it's felt like that for you guys already this evening. We apologize, but there's some really important information you need. But the reason it went 2 hours last night was they had such great input, and they're so excited to get back out there and be with your children to have, you know, a wonderful experience again with the Town Select League. So with that in mind, another thing I can assure you of is, as the leader of the technical department, we didn't just sit around one day and go, you know what, we need to get this Town Select League started again. Never mind this COVID nonsense. What we did was we set up a series of clinics throughout the summer where we were implementing at every single clinic and practice that we ran all of the guidelines that were sent upon us by the state. And we implemented all of these guidelines all the way through the clinics. And then just as we brought one set of clinics to an end, the guidelines changed again. And now that we've found that the children have to wear masks throughout, and we've had to make some modifications, as you've just eloquently heard from Becky, regarding the modifications to the rules of the game or the laws of the game. So what we did was we set up another set of clinics, and we brought in some high school players, and we ran 3 days of clinics under the new guidelines and modifications just to make sure that we could operate and function in the absolute safest possible way, that nobody would encounter any dangerous situations. Now, it wasn't always perfect, and it's not going to be always perfect moving forward. But what I can assure you is this: day one of the clinic, the players hated wearing the mask the whole time. They were not fans of it at all. After 10, 15 minutes, we'd stop and I'd ask them, so what is it like wearing the mask? Oh, it's okay. You know, and they were just being nice to me. After 40, 45 minutes of play, I said, okay, what's it like now wearing the mask? Oh, it's terrible. We're overheating. Somebody's going to get hurt. I go, okay, so now we're starting to understand the whys and wherefores of the mask. So now let's put out there how we're going to deal with this when it becomes too much to bear. You're wearing a mask under a high stress situation. And so we went through this whole procedure of finding some physical distance space, removing the mask safely by removing it from the ear loop, and just taking a breather and feeling that nice cool air on the face. Even during the midst of a heat wave in summer, it actually felt cooler without the mask. And so, you know, bringing it full circle back to last night, what we talked about for your coaches is that we're going to have a session tomorrow night that should just look like a scrimmage. And what they should do with this scrimmage is they should have moments where they have the players remove the masks once they're all safely physically distanced, so that they start to understand when is a good time to be able to remove the mask to catch a breath of fresh air, when is not such a good moment to do that. What we focused on was just let them play the game and introduce the modifications as the modifications arise. An example of this would be the ball gets kicked out of bounds and what would have been known as a throw-in. Well, because we've replaced the throw-in with a kick-in, an indirect free kick-in, now we can have the players learn about the whys and wherefores of how to place a ball without using your hands, making sure that the players are physically distanced, the right yardage from the kick, and the players on the field be physically distanced, the minimum being 6 feet from each other once the kick is about to be executed. So tomorrow night will look a little bit different in terms of we won't follow the regular play methodology that we generally use, but what we've advised them to, and hopefully they'll take me up on this, and I know most of them are listening because they were all anxious to get onto this meeting tonight. So we've got quite a few of them join us tonight. And so I said, please take me up on this. Just use tomorrow as a scrimmage. And whenever the modifications appear, make sure you're implementing the modifications in the best way that you can. and also having the players understand when is a good moment to remove the mask to catch the breath of fresh air, and when's the best moment to put the mask back on. So in terms of the methodology for your coaches, what we've talked about is they should arrive way earlier and way before any of you guys arrive, and they should cone out an area on the sideline, and each cone would become your son or daughter's home base. And those home base where they put all of their equipment, the bag and the water bottle, that would be the home base throughout the practice or the game, and they'd return to that spot every single time. And the distancing of the cones would be such that they're never within the 6 feet minimum that we're asking to keep everything safe and equitable and above board. So we're asking them to arrive early, make sure that they're watching the players arrive, make sure that everybody's wearing a mask, because, you know, as soon as we get out of eye shot, we like to get these things down below the nose, and really that's not something that we would be encouraging at any point. So make sure the mask is being worn properly at every water break, ensure that the masks are being kept on, not put back on at this point. So the masks are being kept on, and just making sure that the whole environment is as safe as possible throughout the time during the practice. Once the practice ends, just monitoring the players and not allowing them to leave in clusters, but having them leave in an orderly fashion, single file, and physically distanced from each other. So we've got all of these guidelines and safety measures in place. So again, ensure the safest possible environment that we can for your sons and daughters. And I'm sure, based on last night's conversations with the staff, that they will do whatever they can to make sure it's the safest environment possible. Again, mistakes will be made. People will pick the ball up by accident because it's just the habit. So anytime a ball is touched by hands, that ball should be removed from play, wiped down with disinfecting wipes, placed back on the ground with the disinfecting wipes, and then kicked back towards the play so we can reuse that ball either immediately or at a later date. So they've got the guidelines, they understand how to keep the environment safe, and now again, it's incumbent on you as the team behind the team to get to know your coach as well as you possibly can do. It's what we've encouraged them to do is set up these kinds of meetings with you to go over whatever your goals and desires are from this program, and make sure that we all have the best possible experience that we can in this season, as has been adequately said many times this evening, in this season that will be like no other season we've experienced before, but we intend to do all we can to make sure it doesn't feel that much different to the children once the end of the season arrives. So with that said, let the floodgates open and let the questions and answers start pouring in.
Ian, thank you so much.
You're very welcome.
Covered, everything so eloquently. That was your word that you used about Becky. Back at you. There might not be any questions because everything was covered so beautifully with you. But so we're going to open up the Q&A. Becky, do you have some of the questions from the chat?
Actually,
I do. Actually, most of them at this point have been answered with,
Okay.
Mike has been able to answer many as they have come in.
Okay. Mike's been on rapid fire. Nice
He
job.
has been.
If you have questions regarding the guidelines, modifications to the game, any of the safety protocols, spectator,
so there are some questions coming in, Maureen, so that Becky and I have been attacking them as quickly as can, but so,
awesome.
yeah. Go on, Becky, if you want to help.
I was just going to say there are a couple here that I'm going to throw out and someone can answer. Will there be practices on Friday when the team has no game on Sundays?
The schedule is on the website of all of our practices.
Great.
And just to be, and that's not a blunt answer, that is just conditioning the parents. I'd like to condition the parents to always check the website, because that is going to be your source of the most recent, current information, both in the TSL and on the regular homepage, please. Thank you.
Any recommendations or concerns about West Nile virus or Triple E?
That's a question from Mike Borslow.
So,
Our executive.
so are there any concerns about West Nile virus and AAA? Yes, there always are. So in essence, we're basically following the guidelines from the state. Actually, it's the department, the EEA, actually oversees all of the spraying and treatments. There has been already an aggressive pre-treatment taking place here in the state. The Governor Baker did sign a statute in earlier this year with regards to that. And so they've already commenced the process. But if there is EEE, it's just like we do every other time, that if there is limitations where practices or games are being played, now games shouldn't be an issue because they're being played during the day. But if there's an issue with practices, either Lancaster, Hamilton, Wenham, or any other location, we're going to abide by what the Department of Health in that town or the DPW in that town states. And typically it's to be off the field 30 minutes before dusk. But we're going to follow the guidance of the government agencies and we'll communicate that to everybody.
Thank you, Mike.
Another question here is for younger age teams without permanent goalkeepers. Will the goalkeepers be rotated or will the goalie be the goalie for the entire game?
Okay, so Ian, you want to take that? Or do you want me to take
I
that?
absolutely do not want to take that because I'm
Okay.
about to tell people that you have to go and buy goalkeeper
No.
gloves.
So, you know, these are some of the things that we had talked about. At the younger age groups, we don't like to pigeonhole any child into a specific position. So the theory is to have everybody play different positions or different spots on the field during the season. So in keeping that in mind, players should always bring their own equipment. There'll be no sharing of the equipment. And I think we had talked about also, especially at that particular age group, and I think we did some of this on the field earlier during the scrimmages in the summer, if they don't have gloves, they can catch it with their hands too.
And let me touch on that because there was a question here about the goalie, can they use their hands? Goalies can use their bare hands and or gloves. The issue is if they touch their face. The second a goalie touches their face with their bare hands or their gloves, they need to sanitize the hands right away. One tactic that can be used, we talked to the coaches about this, is that you can keep a container of sanitizer in the goal, typically the way a goalie would keep their water bottle inside the goal. And that if they do accidentally touch their face at all, they don't have to run to the bench or have a coach run out to them. They can just turn around, get the sanitizer, apply it properly, and then get back into play. We did get a request to read the Q&As because the recording. We can do that at the very end because there were quite a few questions that did come in, and I can rapid fire go through those at the very end. This one's,
Okay.
again, can a waiver be signed electronically? Whenever you register your child, you're actually signing off on a waiver and release at the initial time you registered your child for the TSL. The new waiver that's coming out is going to be, when it comes out tomorrow and distributed, we are going to be required a wet ink signature on that waiver, and then that's going to be turned into the coach. Here's another one. If for some reason the program implodes with COVID issues, only one Sunday's been played, will there be refunds? As you saw from last March, if you were involved, we do everything possible to make sure that we provide refunds to everybody on a prorated basis. So it depends how far along we get and how far into the season. And our policy is to basically, it's to refund any unincurred expenses. For example, uniforms are going to be a part of the distribution, so we're not going to refund the price of the uniform. But we will basically, it's referee fees, field rental fees, coaching stipends and such. that anything that's not paid out will be considered as a part of a refund. It's different than a lot of other programs which have a zero refund policy. We do too, unless it of course is due to something like COVID, and then that is a reason for refunding. Maureen.
Mike, can I piggyback on that too for a minute?
Sure.
About the refunds? So just to confirm, the refund policy is in the TSL handbook, and that is online on a link to the right-hand page of the TSL website. Thank you.
Maureen, where on the website is the practice schedule?
The practice is on the homepage, on the overview.
Okay. And then the next question was the website.
Oh, it's in the handbook also. I'm sorry. It's also in the
Okay.
handbook.
Good. The website name is mayouthsoccer.org. So if you go to the Massachusetts Youth Soccer website, it's mayouthsoccer.org. Go to programs, you'll see Town Select League, click on that, and you'll have more information than you ever care for. Here's a good one, Maureen. Will there be traditional opening ceremonies at the first game?
No, there will not. There will not be. Unfortunately, this is going to be a season of simplicity. And there can be a lot of beauty in simplicity. Safety and health will always be paramount and in the forefront, but any opportunity to put kids together in a line or a ceremony or a parade or we're going to pass on those opportunities and just enjoy the beauty of the game and keep people safe.
Very nice, thanks. I answered one of these questions similar earlier. They were asking about masks with markings. Unlike high school, which is going to have a mask that's going to be of a solid color that matches the color or all white or whatever it is, but we will permit people to have masks with soccer balls on them or happy faces, but no masks with anything in poor taste at all. If there's any masks that are worn by a child that's in poor taste, we're going to ask that they either find a substitute or the coach actually may have a disposable one that they could use for that practice only. But that's perfectly fine. Maureen,
Yeah.
question there is, will there be a similar webinar for team administrators?
Yeah, okay, so that is it. I'm going to refrain from what I'm going to say because I don't like the response. I'm going to, this person that has asked this question is really doing their homework, and I love that. So thank you. The team administrator position, people have been slowly but surely volunteering to administrate, but there is a process that's involved with this. So the first thing we need to do before we do any webinars is to make sure that all team administrators have completed the safe sport training and also the concussion certification from the CDC and pass a Massachusetts Youth Soccer Core. So that's a process that takes a few days for everyone. And the administrators have been informed that until they get an okay from me, after we've checked everything, that, you know, if we can't get them on Friday, if we can't get them on Sunday, we'll get them on as long as they fulfill those requirements. But it is safety and details first before we put anybody on the field. And then at that time, we will do something similar to this for sure, because information is kind. So we need to make sure that everybody knows their responsibilities and that we carry them out with diligence and vigilance.
Okay, thank you. I've been mentioning the Lancaster and Iron Rails. The question is, are the Danvers fields still active?
Which ones?
In Danvers.
The gates? Yes, they are. The TSL will be using gates, which has just been redone. So that would be one of our practice fields on Friday night.
Question is, should we purchase goalie gloves for our child since they may have a turn as goalie? That's an option for a parent. You may, but they just can't borrow somebody else's gloves. So if you don't have gloves, they can play with their bare hands. But if if a child does have the opportunity to be in goal and it's a part of the coach's recommendation, the coach will give guidance to the parents as to what they would like to do with regards to that. There's a good question here, and it's one of these things. I think it's the first time we've been asked. Will the goalie need to wear a penny, and who will provide it? So, actually, Marina, have you gotten this one yet?
Have I got, no, I've gotten that from some of the coaches. We actually have, they could use the opposite color, but then that other team is going to be using that same color for the team. So, honesty is the best policy. And I really have to say that I'm not embarrassed to say I don't know about that.
Okay. So just to make it clear is that some coaches do have pennies. And the key is that if a coach is going to give a penny to a player, the coach has to sanitize before touching, give it to the player who's permitted to wear it. After the player is finished wearing it, the player will take it off, put it on the ground where the coach will pick it up, put it in a bag, and not touch it again until they take it home and wash it. Cannot be used by anybody else. So pennies, if a coach does provide a penny, it's just the coach has to make sure that it's been pre-sanitized and that the keeper is the only person using it. And then after they get it, they're allowed to. So,
But they can also bring their own goalie shirt, correct? They can bring their own
absolutely. They can bring their own goalie shirt, or they could bring another oversized T-shirt, or
Right.
that's the recommendation. But if it comes down to it, is that take the burden off the coach, please, and make it easy if your child is in goal. So
let's confirm. So they just would bring another shirt of their own with a different color other than red and silver for the girls,
right,
and navy and silver for the boys. So either their own goalie shirt or another different color shirt, as long as it has, if it's got anything on the front, it has to have no derogatory comments on the shirt. Let's do that instead of the pinning thing, if that's okay.
That's fine. Great.
I'll send that out to everyone. Thank you. Thanks,
Okay,
Mike.
great. No, that's a great question as well that came in. We appreciate our coach reaching out. The email will be provided to team roster names of other players. So will rosters of names of other players be shared with the team?
We get this questions from parents, and we get the question from the coaches asked by parents. But honestly, the first practice, you're going to meet everybody. So I always ask why that question is being asked. So you're going to meet the team. If everybody agrees that the roster can be shared and prior, that's okay, because I know that some people like to cheer for people and they like to know their names. But let's just go one step at a time this fall, and wait till everybody meets on Friday night, and then go from there with the coach. I mean, and again, that's something that could be discussed at the parent meeting too, because we do listen to the parents and what they want also. So,
Okay.
but typically we don't share it. Yeah.
There's another request for us to go over some of the Q&A at the very end of the ones that we typed in answering, for those that may have some limitations on viewing the screen. So we'll take care of that. Question, where can I buy a goalie shirt? Soccer.com or We Got Soccer. There's all different places. Recommendation is, since the kids are growing, don't spend too much money on a goalie shirt. If anything, just use a penny. There has been some towns that have given pennies out to their kids. And so, that you can bring those as well. You just cannot share equipment. That's the most important thing. In Lancaster, will it be possible for other spectators, family, to watch the game from a distance away from the field and other spectators? Folks, it's one spectator on the property per child. So there will not be any other viewing areas for beyond one spectator per player. And No end of game handshakes where the kids still need to line up and verbally talk to the other team. Basically, what you'll see is the teams are going to be 6 feet. The kids will be 6 feet apart on their half of the field. And if they want to do a group cheer to the other team, that's perfectly fine. They just cannot huddle up. They have to keep their 6 feet of separation and just say thank you to the other team. But no handshakes, no fist pumps, no elbow pumps at all. So unfortunately, we'll just have to find other ways to celebrate each other. And I'm going to go back to where we started answering questions, Maureen. I apologize not knowing that we did have certain individuals with viewing limitations, and that would be on me for rapid firing, answering a lot of these questions. Question about the rule modifications. Will coaches understand these? There was a coach webinar last night, and we went through all the rule modifications with the coaches last night. There was a question about symptoms. If their child has a fever alone, oops, I'm moving too quickly for my own good here. Bear with me, trying to scroll through everything here. If a child has a fever alone, will they, should they go to practice? Well, first off, if a child has a fever, even before COVID, they shouldn't be going to practice or games. There's evident signs of an illness. And so they shouldn't be going, but you can definitely bring the child to a practice or game after the fever has subsided and no other symptoms are present. But if other symptoms do manifest themselves, definitely seek some assistance for sure. Bear with me here. Becky came in and answered this about, will referees use whistles? They'll be using electronic whistles that's available. And they're loud, believe me, they're 125 decibels. So there will not be any concerns. In addition to that, if they don't have an electronic whistle, they can use, there's a squeaky whistle that is made. And I've even seen a referee actually use a squeaky duck as his noisemaker, because the federation doesn't say a whistle must be used. It just said a signal must take place. Question about, once again, about can sport masks with loops that go around the head be worn? Not a gaiter. And we are saying nothing that wraps around the head or neck, only ear loop style is permitted. Several questions about parents dropping off and leaving. I think I covered that in detail. Is no, they must remain on the property at the field or in the car, but no stop and drop and come back later during this period that we're going through. A lot of questions about when people were going to get their uniforms, and it will be tomorrow night at practice. A parent had a question about a child with a skin sensitivity cannot use hand sanitizer, and can alternative hypoallergenic wipes be used? As long as those hypoallergenic wipes meet CDC guidelines on alcohol of 60% or more, yes, they can be used. Let me see. Sometimes running with a mask is hard. For a player, if they're running out of air, how do they pull it down? Folks, is the child will wear the mask onto the field of play. If at any time they're finding it's hard to breathe, they're out of breath, and they need to catch their breath, and the mask is impeding that, they just move away 6 to 10 feet away from all other players, pull the mask down, catch their breath, and then get back into play. They don't have to leave the field. They can't call for a stoppage. There's going to be a lot of funky stuff happening this season. You're going to see players moving off the side to catch their breath, and all of a sudden now a team's playing one player up. This season is about safety, health, wellness, and skill development. You could have scores that are astronomical because of some of these modifications. Do not worry about the score, because the TSL has never worried about scores. We've worried about our players' health, safety, and development, and that's going to continue. So let's not get all worked up about having to move aside to catch one's breath. Somebody asked about
Mike.
Yeah, go on.
Mike, I'm sorry. I just want to expand on so there would never be a team that would be at a disadvantage. If that happened, because we're a development program, the coaches would decide and present the most, the best scenario for development. So for example, the other team would take somebody off too, if there was just, so that it would always equalize players versus players on the team.
Great,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Maureen. Absolutely. Some questions about the type of mask is we can't make a recommendation to a brand or a model or anything. All we can say is go to the mask.gov or the CDC website, and they'll have a list of masks that meet their guidelines to be worn. But if you really want to go overboard, I'm sure you can find a ear loop mask made specifically for sport for your child. Question came in, it was about a rule modification. Prior, we used to have, for the last 3 weeks up until last Friday, that we had a corner kick in and a throw in kick in that was not allowed to go into the penalty area. Both of those kicks have been replaced by indirect free kicks, just like any normal indirect free kick takes place during the game, and these can now go into the penalty area. So that limitation was taken off. There is one thing too, is that if you've read the MIAA, some of our players may have siblings in high school. And the MIAA is actually not allowing any indirect free kicks to be lofted into the air. All of their kicks must be on the ground. We are not making that limitation to our federation level of play. Will team admins be marking off 6 feet? We're not going to be marking off 6 feet around the fields unless we have to. So if we notice that at games and practices that parents have a difficult time estimating what 6 feet is, we just may have to get a can of spray paint and start putting dots around fields. We hope we don't have to do that.
Actually, Mike, we have for both of our Wenham locations, for our Wenham location and Mass Youth Soccer location, which are our game days, there will be spectator social distancing spots around the fields.
Well, then that answers that question real easy. Stick to your spot. And question about carpooling again, once again, the EEA, the state, and Mass Youth Soccer prefer carpooling not take place. But if it's the only method of the way a child can get there, and if that person taking them is going to be their assigned chaperone, then that's alternative is okay. Once again, sanitize before getting in the car, mask in the car the entire time, sanitize after getting out of the car, social distance on your way to the field, and away you go. So, and then I think we have it up to there. And then, of course, some more questions came in, and let me see if we haven't answered them. I think I answered this one here. I'll dismiss that. Okay, great question. If you are a team administrator, you don't count as one of the spectator rules. That is correct.
Right.
Coaches, a coach, a team administrator, a team COVID officer, they do not count towards the spectator number. And the reason being is that out of fairness to a coach and or team administrator that will be at every event, their spouse or partner or other person may never get a chance to go because they would be the spectator. So they don't count towards the spectator number. In addition, the state of Massachusetts doesn't count them as well in the total of 50. So if you're a coach or a team administrator and you have a child playing, you are allowed to have one other spectator there as well.
And to the team, to anybody on the call that is volunteered to be a team administrator, as mentioned in the email last night, we will be burning the midnight oil. So don't be surprised if you don't hear something tonight from those certification verifications.
Okay. Excellent question about bathroom facilities. Under the EEA guidelines, there are strict guidelines for facility operators, of which Mass Youth Soccer is a facility operator. And we are following the EEA guidelines on proper limits of people within, as well as the sanitizing schedule that will be maintained. And also at all locations, there will be sanitizer available for the public to come and sanitize, whether if you're using a fixed building as a bathroom and or a porta potty that may be available. And so there will be sanitization materials there as well. But all of our bathrooms and facilities will be maintained per EEA guidelines. There is a question about recording this webinar. Yes, it will be available. Maureen will distribute that. And then lastly is the last question. I'm not going to take any more after this. Just understanding, if I have two players in the program playing at the same time at the same field, can both parents or guardians attend to make sure that there's someone that each player, well, each player gets one spectator. So if you have two kids playing, you get one spectator per child. So, and there you go, Maureen.
Shame on me for scheduling a parent with two. How would I know? Good sports. So thank you to all the families that joined us tonight. And definitely thank you to our esteemed panel, Bob Trudeau, our president, Becky Blanton, our referee assigner, Mike Borslow, our executive director, who brings a wealth of knowledge to these webinars that is unparalleled, and Ian Mulliner, who says so much to us with very few words. And I do want to mention one more thing. There are 14 faces that work really hard on this program that aren't on this webinar, and they are youth soccer staff, and actually more than 14, and then our board of directors. So there's about 35 of us or 35 other people that are not on this call. You don't see their faces, but we all work together as a team for the benefit of all of you in the TSL. So thank you to my coworkers and my colleagues for helping out with the TSL and making it a wonderful program and allows opportunity for children. And so we look forward to Friday night, tomorrow night at practice. And remember, social distancing, wear your mask, and exhibit kindness and culture throughout the season. Thank you very much.